This question is for you. What does it really mean to show up? Today's guest has spent his life learning the answer the hard way, from working as a farmhand to a carpenter to becoming one of the top producers in the business world. He earned ownership in a company that eventually sold for nearly $10 billion. He's crafted a life that epitomizes what it means to show up and what kind of impact it actually has. You need to hear from this gentleman today. His name is Daryl Dittmer. He's our guest today. Daryl, welcome to the flagship, man. Good to have you here.
We appreciate you having me, man. Appreciate it.
Same here, brother. Let's go ahead and jump in. So, what does show up actually mean? I've heard it so many times. I hear it even now in some of the circles, not only entrepreneurially, but even in the ministry circles that I run in. I hear showing up. It sounds simple, but I suspect it's a lot deeper than just simply getting out of bed and going to work. For you, Daryl, what does it mean to show up, and why do people struggle to do it consistently?
Showing up means a number of things, but it means, as you said, more than attending. You know, I can attend a meeting, I can attend church, I can attend a lot of things, but but am I showing up all the time for what I am charged with doing? And if I've decided that my why in life is going to be a big, expansive why, and it's going to be making an impact in other people's lives, making an impact in my life, changing something that's important, I can't just attend. I have to dive in, and I have to go deep, and I have to go through the difficulties that are required of me to make that difference in the world, but also, and I think most importantly, make that difference in here within myself.
Love that. I love talking to people who have a childhood or a background at blue collar. I grew up like that too, so I understand the idea of having work ethic taught to us, and it's not optional for sure where we come from. You touched on many different talents, like you said in the outset: farmhand, carpenter, salesperson, business owner, investor, just building across the board. What did that environment that you grew up in teach you about responsibility that you think people aren't learning much of today?
Well, here's a little story that I think will probably outline that pretty good. My dad, after church one day, I don't know if I was 13 or 14, but I was a kid. And after church one day, he put me in front of a farmer, and he said, "Hey, can you put him to work?" And the farmer's like, "Yeah, I can put him to work." Nobody asked me, nobody said, "How do you feel about this? Is this going to hurt your feelings?" Anything like that. Nobody cared. So that was number one. But number two, I was probably 15, and I had been wearing, my dad was a mechanic. My mom took care of the kids, so we didn't have, a lot of money, and that was fine. We didn't know we didn't have a lot of money. It was fine. Mm-hmm. But he put me in front of, or actually, when I said, "Dad, can I get some work boots?" Because I'm wearing, we used to call them tennis shoes. I think we call them sneakers now, but I'm wearing those, and I'm putting duct tape on them. I'm trying to keep the cow manure and the pig manure from getting into these shoes. And every single day, I had holes this big in my shoes, And I said, "Dad, can I get some work boots?" He's like, "Well, yeah, you're working, man. Go buy yourself some." And I was 15. So that was great. The impact that had on me, and I didn't like it at the time. I'm like, "Well, you're my dad. What's going on, dude?" But I didn't say that to him. You couldn't say something like that. But that showed me my first real lesson in I'm responsible. I am responsible. And I carried that into my life after I got into trouble. But I remembered that story, and that helped me.
Love that, man. It's very germane and authentic, man. I wish more of us can learn from stories like that. For most people, it's just bad time that happened to them as opposed to learning lessons. I don't know if this is if I'm framing this the right way, but I do my best with this question. Do you believe, Daryl, that discipline can be learned, or does it require something a lot deeper, like maybe a decision to change yourself, or a decision to commit yourself to being changed? Do you feel like discipline can be learned, or is that something that you feel a little differently about?
I think discipline is something in my life, for whatever reason, when I was 18 years old and going into my 19, and it was darkest before the dawn.
Yeah.
And I needed to change me and to show up for my life. I had to have it get dark. I had to not want to be on the planet anymore. And that's basically where I was at that time. And so through that darkness, I came out. And, the story is I went through drug and alcohol treatment, 30-day inpatient treatment program. And so I was in rough shape. I didn't know how to live. I was a kid. I didn't have a clue. I didn't know how to be in recovery. I didn't know how to stay sober. I didn't know any of it. So I was introduced to mentors that helped me with the disciplines that I needed to learn, and not just learn, because a lot of people learn stuff, but they don't implement it. And that's the difference between attending and showing up. Most everybody knows what they need to do. Look at your phone. It'll tell you exactly what you need to do, but are you going to do it? And that's the discipline part that we learn, but we also have to put into practice if we're going to get the change we desire.
I love that. I'm going to pivot just slightly because you mentioned something I want to kind of touch on. You mentioned your battle with addiction. I can't say I would attribute that to a blue collar upbringing, because I don't think that's necessarily a guaranteed absolute connection every time. But can you pinpoint where in your life you felt like, you know what, this was an open door for me to go in that direction? Could you locate what it was that kind of made addiction a move that you made?
Yeah, it does. I don't know that I can say, well, this was it in terms of one thing, but it was a general feeling of insecurity, of not good enough, of not, I felt like, and this isn't true. Look, I'm cool with my past, and because I've been doing this stuff for a long time, and you got to get cool with your past to find that peace. And I have, but there was a lot expected of us and of me when I was a kid. And it was, it was sports, which was kind of my dad's, thing, be good at sports. There was grades, there was manners, there was all of those things. And I wasn't always stellar in regard to those things. And I felt unloved. And that's not necessarily true, but that's how it felt to me. And I felt like I wasn't good enough if I didn't absolutely outperform. And so I think that's sort of the general reasoning why I had to try to get somewhere to escape what I thought at that time was pressure.
That makes sense. It sounds like just from your experience and the story that I've followed up with you regarding, you've kind of built a life of discipline, and you kind of live to be an excuse remover as opposed to an excuse maker. What do you think are some of the things that people don't realize kind of slowly destroys their lives because they refuse to confront it? What kind of things have you noticed, whether it's in your own life or in the lives of those that you've been helping, that kind of destroy them because they won't confront it? What kind of things have you been seeing?
There's a lot of malaise that can be accepted in our lives, and that malaise can have to do with things that I'm putting my time into that are disconnecting me from life. They're disconnecting me from my relationships. They're disconnecting me from experiencing life. And that can be social media. That can be the need for attention. That can be the need for comfort. It can be drugs. It can be alcohol. It can be food. It can be gambling. It can be a number of different things that remove us from the direct experience of life. That the direct experience of life, and I'll just say this because I do it, fairly often, is I get up at, say 4 or 5 in the morning. I haven't had an alarm clock or set it in years, except to get to the airport sometimes. But I'll sit outside on our deck and I'll look up at the sky and I'll just enjoy the stars. And I can do that in the morning because I get up early enough and I can do it. And that to me is a direct experience of life. And a lot of things come from that. A lot of, I talk to my parents who have both been deceased for a long time. I'm experiencing a communion with something beautiful, and people can say God or the universe or energy or whatever they want to say. And it doesn't matter to me. I know what I believe, but those experiences are what bring us peace in the world and ability to deal with some of the difficulties of life, as opposed to just being attached to that noise and that malaise. And we have to allow ourselves to get away from that if we want a life of true freedom, in my mind.
Okay. In past years, I've coached entrepreneurs, business leaders who have dealt with burnout and dealt with having a lack of purpose in what they were doing. You've built businesses, achieved financial success, and just have a load of experience that most entrepreneurs just dream about. What would you say, or I'll rephrase that, have you ever been in a space in your life where you realized that you built something that may not have been worth building and had to tear it down?
Well, I would say not necessarily from a business perspective.
Yeah,
now, there have been certainly, failures, quote unquote, in my life, or times where I didn't pursue a particular avenue. And these were, mostly in my younger years, but times when I had to say, you know what, I'm done. I've had enough of that. But the biggest part of me that I've had to, or my life that I've had to tear down, is inside of me. And so I know this gets a little philosophical, but it's real because it's how it's played out in my life. There's a lot of garbage to be taken out in our lives. And this can be things, when we're young, we're handed this box of things that's like, okay, here's your belief system, dude. Whether you believe it or not, whether you verified it, whether it resonates, whether anything, it's just like, here, man, here you go. Here's what you have to believe. And so I had to tear some of those things down from my life and say, you know what? I'm not sure that I'm buying it, that I'm buying all of it in everything that you're telling me and everything that you're telling me I have to believe. And so that's probably the biggest demolition project that I've had to do in my life, was inside of me and my belief system. At this point in my life, it is, and this is going to sound a little crazy, we can get into it or not, but it's almost non-existent, because it's so important to me to experience this life, as opposed to sort of outsourcing everything to what I believe. If that makes any sense. It's the experience of life is what I feel I'm here for.
I love it. Okay, that makes sense to me. 2 more questions, Daryl, and then we close the show off today. When you look at, and I hesitate when people come on and they say that they're experts at certain things. I try to make sure I don't put them in a spot where they have to be an expert at something that they're really not an expert at. I try to give the benefit of the doubt with that. But you have made it a point of your story to craft a life that says, you know what, if this is life that you want, it's going to require you to show up. Give us some characteristics of a life that requires you to show up.
Yeah, I mean, I would say being a risk taker, and I'm not talking the crazy stuff I used to do in my teens, that was like, oh boy, I better not do that because I might not come out of it. Courage, persistence, patience, perseverance. I mean, and I think a big one that allows me to continue to show up is I have to know what my why is. And I have to know what is the reason that I am going to go through the pain of having a life that may be different than, maybe it's different than 90% of the people on the planet experience. And that's an important thing to know, because if you don't know your why and you're not committed to your why and you can't lean back on your why, there's a very real possibility that you're going to quit. And I hope that answered the question, but those are the things that come to mind for me in terms of indispensable to showing up.
So definitely. This is our final question for the broadcast, Daryl. It's what we call the mirror check question. It's an opportunity to speak to people specifically who may be listening and watching. Perhaps they know they're capable of more. Perhaps they're just drifting and not kind of aligned with where they want to be in life. Maybe they're waiting for somebody to motivate them, waiting for the right circumstances to happen, or waiting for somebody else to change something that they may need to change themselves. What's the first thing you want to tell these people who are watching and listening? They need to start doing this tomorrow morning. They're faced with the situation where they're looking across at themselves and they're seeing a person that it's not what they want to be, and not who they want to be. It's not a life they want to have. What would you tell them? Sound practical advice for them that are watching and listening today in regards to showing up and being the person they need to be? What would you say to them?
The first thing you need to do, and I'm assuming that you're already sick and tired of being sick and tired, because if you want to change, you got to be sick and tired of being sick and tired. But don't try to change everything all at once. You have to focus on one small thing to change, because it can be very shocking. And I've done it, believe me. I don't talk about anything that I haven't experienced. So change one small thing. If you're having a problem with maybe your weight, maybe don't eat anything after 7:00 at night. If it's one small thing. If you're having an issue with being on time, think about changing your life by 10 minutes. Just move it back 10 minutes and do everything a little bit early. So one of those small changes what you have to do is build confidence. And you'll build confidence by changing one small thing and doing it for a period of time. And then you can add something else. And that's a really important thing, I believe, because I've tried to change everything. And when you try to change everything, you just go back to where you started. One small thing at a time.
Definitely. As old Proverbs said, if you chase 2 rabbits, you get none. It's a real thing. But Daryl, thanks for being here, man, and being a part of this conversation on showing up and building a life of impact, man. Your perspectives are profound, man. So thanks for coming here on and sharing this with us, man. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Mr. Yu. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, man.
The pleasure's mine, sir. If this episode resonates with you watchers and listeners today, ask yourself Daryl's question. Are you ready to show up? Not for everybody else, but for yourself. Show up for the promise you made to yourself. Show up for the relationships that you've been neglecting. Show up for the person that you know you're capable of becoming. If the conversation makes you think about somebody else who's been drifting, avoiding things, or waiting for life to change, share the episode with them. Share Daryl's information, which you're going to have in the show notes and in the comments section of the show, so that way you can be able to find him. I believe the website is DarylDittmer.com. Did I get that right, Daryl?
That's correct, yes.
Is that correct? All right, we have it in the comment section. It's already in the show notes already. So if you're going to be watching this show on replay later, you can find that there. And of course, subscribe to They Call Me Mr. Yu, the podcast on YouTube, on our channel, or wherever you get your podcast from. Thanks again for making us part of your week. And don't forget, the difference between who you are and who you could be is found in what you do every single day. That's Daryl Dittmer. I'm Mr. Yu. Have a great day. Thanks for watching The Flagship. Have a good one.